Welcome, Hoosier fans, to another edition of Banner Morning, recorded in the pre-noon hours on Thursday, August 9th, 2018. I'm Jared Morris, and we are now just 51 days away from Hoosier hysteria. In recruiting news, James Bouknight from Massachusetts is one of the top guards on Archie Miller's wish list for the class of 2019, and it appears Indiana is in a good position to get a visit from the 6'4 scorer. Adam Zagoria of zagsblog.com reports that Bouknight has already visited or is planning to visit East Coast schools Seton Hall, Miami, and UConn. He quotes Bouknight as saying, "I'm talking about going on a visit to Indiana. I'm going to cut my list down to 5 really soon, probably this week," unquote. So be on the lookout for that. Also, top 50 prospect Zeke Najee out of Minnesota tells Corey Evans of Rivals that he will be taking an unofficial visit to Indiana on August 26th. That is obviously good news, but this doesn't seem like a recruitment to get too excited about just yet, given that Indiana is only one of 7 visits that Nnaji already has lined up for August. Oh, and he just announced on Wednesday that an offer from Kansas had come in, so expect the Jayhawks to get a look, as well as possibly some others. The only in-home visit Nnaji has scheduled so far is Arizona. Could this be the first Archie versus Sean, brother versus brother recruiting battle? Right now, Indiana fans can only hope Archie's pursuit progresses that far. And finally, Indiana offered a scholarship to a new prospect in the class of 2019, Caden Shedrick out of North Carolina. This was tweeted by his coach, Dwayne West, and confirmed by Jeff Rabjohns from Peegs. According to a recent article by Brian Snow at 24/7 Sports, Shedrick, a 6'10 center, burst onto the national scene with a strong summer. He isn't currently ranked, but Snow expects him to, quote, make a significant rise, unquote, when their rankings are updated. Other schools who have offered Shedrick include Xavier, Arizona State, Creighton, and Ole Miss. No word yet on if or when he will visit Bloomington. And in NCAA news, you might have heard that the NCAA announced some rule changes yesterday based on recommendations from the Rice Commission. We will be talking more about this tonight on Assembly Call Radio, but suffice it to say, most informed college basketball observers are not convinced these rule changes will do much of anything to actually curb the problems that led to last season's infamous FBI investigations. And most of the rule change headlines don't really reflect the nuance of real-life application. For example, the headline, "College players who declare for the draft but don't get drafted will now be able to return to school." Sounds pretty good. But the practical fine print reality is that it's not all players who declare. It's only players who received an invite to the combine but then didn't get drafted. This is a very small number of players annually, since most players invited to the combine do end up getting drafted. Also, the deadline to return to school is before NBA Summer League. And almost any player within even a prayer's chance of getting drafted is likely to make a summer league team. Will those players pass up that opportunity to return to school? In short, it's a good rule change, so make no mistake about that. Players who fit this criteria should have this choice, but the reality of the impact is unlikely to match the headline. And this goes for many of the rule changes announced on Wednesday. The potential problem is that other rule changes, like those dealing with summer basketball and with agents, may have unintended negative consequences that do more harm than good. And even other rule changes, like those dealing with players having agents, could, in practice, actually worsen the problems these rule changes were intended to help. For more insight on the NCAA rule changes, read articles on this topic by Rick Bozich and Corey Evans, which are linked in the episode notes and at assemblycall.com. You can also listen to the latest episode of the Eye on College Basketball podcast with Gary Parrish and Matt Norlander. They have an insightful discussion about this as well. Thank you for listening to today's Banner Morning. Remember to come hang out with us tonight, Thursday night at 9 o'clock Eastern Time on YouTube for the live broadcast of Assembly Call Radio, and then immediately following every IU game once the season begins. Until then, keep your elbows in and your eyes on the rim, and go Hoosiers.